Good day, Buckeyes. Today is game day in the first 12 team college football playoff. And just like the 4 team college football playoff, we are in the inaugural season of it. So hopefully it ends up the same way that inaugural playoff ended up, with the Buckeyes hoisting the trophy. If you see behind me, I am including a picture of the last time we played Tennessee, uh, known as Cleat Gate. Uh, Tennessee wore illegal cleats in that game, and it was still a close game. But if you notice, if you go back and watch, we were slipping on the field way more than they were. The NCAA did nothing about the illegal cleats. They won on the field. You know that's in the books a long time ago. But it was a good, hard-fought, physical game, which I expect today to be as well. Today is an interesting day. We've had two Big Ten teams play. Indiana, first off, I know you're taking a lot of flack for getting in the playoff, but congratulations on one of the best seasons you've had in your entire history. No one's saying that about you guys, but you guys played really well this season. A 10-win season is quite an accomplishment for the first year head coach. And I just want to give a big congratulations to Indiana. The Indiana Hoosiers made the college football playoff. It was ended quickly by a much more physical and much more talented Notre Dame team. But they did not quit. They scored 2 touchdowns at the end of the game to make it look a little bit better. But by all means, it was a blowout on the field, even though the score doesn't indicate that. Obviously, Notre Dame beat them worse than the final score looks. But unlike other people, I just wanted to give a big congratulations to Indiana. They have to be proud of their team. I know they would prefer to advance, but I think most people felt that Notre Dame would win. But, I always root for the underdog. So, congrats to Indiana. Right now, Penn State is at halftime. For me, probably by the time I stream this, it'll be well over. But right now, they're up 28-0. I think most people feel like Penn State's going to beat both SMU and Boise State. Boise State might give them a little bit tougher game just because of their running. They have one of the best running backs in the country, maybe the best. It's hard to say because they don't play the competition that the elite teams do. But how does Ohio State stack up against elite teams? We've seen what I'm going to call 3 versions of Ohio State this year. We saw the version that played Oregon, the version that played Michigan, and the version that played the rest of the season. And so, what's the difference between those teams? Well, the version that played Oregon had the worst defensive game plan I've seen in a long time for a game as far as under Jim Knowles. Oregon ran a different offense than we expected, I guess, but we never adjusted, and I'll never understand that. However, it was a 1-point loss on the road with a chance to kick a field goal at the end of the game if they didn't subtract 3 seconds from the clock. What was it, 3 or 4 seconds? There were also 20 other seconds that ticked off of that clock as well that people weren't pointing out. Regardless of how you look at it, we lost that game, and on the field, we were evenly matched with Oregon, which is widely considered the best team in the nation. I'm not going to talk a lot about Oregon today because we have to get past the first round to worry about them, and that's not a given. So we'll talk about Oregon next week if we do happen to get there. But the second version that I want to speak of is the version that played Michigan. Now, in the cold weather, which that was one of the coldest days of the year. In fact, it was the coldest day of the year that we played football this season, although tonight is going to be way colder. But in the cold, in the wind, it is difficult to pass the ball, and that is a fact. And tonight, we're going to have to pass the ball, but that ball is going to be freezing to hold in your hands, and it does affect your throwing. Now, are we conditioned to handle this? We should be, being in Columbus. Tennessee probably will be affected a little bit more than they realize. I hear a lot of Tennessee fans say, well, we get cold too, and that is true. It gets cold in Tennessee. but they're playing us on what I think is the coldest day of the year. So it's going to be very interesting because not only is the ball hard to throw in the cold weather, but also also getting hit in the cold weather hurts. Beyond what it normally does in a football game. So who's conditioned better for that? Well, I will say that in cold weather, it is better to have a good running game. So hopefully Ohio State got this makeshift line figured out because we don't need to run for 200 yards, which, we haven't been running that effectively since we lost that last lineman against Indiana, Seth McLaughlin. Uh, Ohio State's lost a total of 3 offensive linemen that would either start or play in every game. So that's affected us greatly. But there, of course, are no excuses in football. Your guys behind them have to be ready to go at any time. And Ohio State's had 3 weeks to work that out. If they haven't worked it out, that's a failure of our coaching staff. So we're going to have to be able to throw the ball if that makeshift O-line is not blocking up to par against Tennessee. So that's a huge problem. But that second team that showed up against Michigan in the cold weather did not use their weapons for some reason. And not a single Ohio State fan, Ohio State analyst, college football analyst, not a single Buckeye Beat member, not even the Kirk Barton's scoop can figure out what the heck was our coaching staff doing in that game. We have 4 wide receivers that could burn that Michigan team all game long. And even if you're double teaming Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka is consistent. Not only Emeka Egbuka, though, because we have 2 other wide receivers that have played really good ball. So not a single person on the planet understands what the heck we were doing in that Michigan game. And sounds like my dog's making some noises for some reason. It happens every time I do this. But anyways, that strategy, I don't even know if you can call it a strategy. We have no clue what that was. All I can say is that was the worst offensive game plan I've seen out of this coaching staff. Although Nebraska was maybe on par with it. So it's happened. It happened against Nebraska too, but we won. But those are the 2 teams that we don't want to see tonight: the bad defense team and the bad offense team. But the rest of the season, like the team that played against Penn State, would crush Michigan. The team that played the rest of the season, except for Nebraska, would crush Michigan. And that team didn't show up on that day for whatever reason. We need the team that showed up for our 10 wins to play against Tennessee. We need that team to show up today in order to win. To get the big W, we need to utilize our skill players. We need to be imaginative and go on the outside. We still need to run it up the gut some, but what we don't want to see is us trying to prove to Tennessee how tough we are. You prove it by taking advantage of their weaknesses. A tougher team takes advantage of another team's weakness. What is Tennessee's weakness? Well, if you look at the Georgia-Tennessee game, their quarterback threw all over Tennessee, and he's not really that great of a quarterback, to be honest. Like, that was the only game where you saw him throw for nearly 400 yards, and for some reason, he showed up for that game. That tells me that we do need to get the ball to our skill players. If they're going to double team Jeremiah Smith, we got to get it to Carnell Tate. We got to get it to Brandon Ennis. We got to get it to Emeka Egbuka. And we also need to use our tight ends as well. That'll take them straight off of Jeremiah Smith on double teaming if we have to go to our other receivers. But we got to get it in their hands, even if it's a 5-yard gain at a time, even if it's not a deep ball. The other, we don't have to throw all deep balls. The other thing I do want to say, though, for the love of all things holy, coaching staff, go for at least 3 or 4 deep balls in this game. Try it. You don't have to complete it, but it sure does give them something to worry about. Why are we not doing that? I'll never understand it. Go for some deep balls. Okay. Now, Tennessee has another weakness on their front. And I know that everybody's talking about their defensive front, but their defensive front is the opposite of Michigan. And what I mean by that is all of their defensive linemen are talented. There's no doubt about it. But their strength lies on the edges, not in the middle, on the edges. What they have is an athletic defensive line that tries to accomplish the same thing that Michigan does: shut down the run, put pressure on the quarterback. They do it pretty effectively. But what Michigan has is the center. Two players are the ones that are the best on the team, not the ends. So it's kind of reverse with the same goal in mind. But Tennessee's the more athletic type team. Michigan's the bigger, gigantic guys. I would like to argue, and we'll confirm this, or it'll prove me wrong tonight, that our offensive line is geared more for these athletic type defensive players than it is for the massive Big Ten players, traditional style that Michigan has. And that could help us against Tennessee. We might actually be able to run a little bit better against Tennessee than Michigan, even though Tennessee might have a slightly better defensive line. So, but running up the center is where you can get Tennessee more so than on the edge or, trying to get outside. But we still need to try to get outside, but we also need to run up the gut a little bit at them, give them something to worry about. If we can at least get 3 or 4 yards per play on the run game, we can at least do an effective enough job to keep them honest. But if we're going to drop back and just throw the ball constantly, that might not be the best method. We have to try and stay a little bit balanced. But if the Georgia game's any indication, that should allow Will to, at least be able to throw for a 200, 300-yard game tonight. And a 200 to 300-yard game would be effective enough to beat Tennessee. Defensively, Tennessee is more of a run-first team. But obviously, they're going to get Nico some, screen passes. They'll try to see if they can burn us on those screens. They're going to obviously throw the ball to keep us honest. Dylan Sampson is one of the best running backs in the country, so I do believe we'll be keyed in on him when he gets the ball. We want to try and take him away and put the pressure on Nico. Now, Nico can move with his legs. We have to be careful of that. But I do not want to see Jim Knowles today try to go back to that cage rush completely. Doing the cage rush isn't bad sometimes, but you do want to get some sacks and some swats, some knockdowns. You want to give them something to worry about. You don't want to allow him to do what Dylan Gabriel did, because if he can do what Dylan Gabriel did, we're going to have a fight on our hands. If we can key in on Dylan Sampson tonight and keep them from moving the ball consistently, we will win this game. And I do feel that that's the case. As long as we're using our weapons on offense, that's the key. We'll always scratch our heads about the Michigan game, but that game this year is the first season that I would venture to say that game does not matter to our chances to win the championship. Now, it matters. Obviously, you want to win against your rivalry every year, and it hurts until next year when you get another chance to beat them. So we're going to have to get that monkey off of our back. And, a lot of people will not even care what Ryan Day does in this playoff simply because we keep losing to our rivals. But if we win the Natty, that'll take some of the pain away. And our team is skilled enough to do it. Now, if you compare us to Tennessee, we have better skill players than Tennessee does. They have our defenses are pretty similar, and our offensive lines are pretty similar because Tennessee does not have the best offensive line. In fact, I would venture to say that Michigan's offensive line is better than Tennessee's. And, at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't have said that. But at the end of the season, Michigan actually is a better team now than they were at the beginning of the year. So even though they're 7-5, going into an irrelevant bowl game, They did get better as the year went along, and Ohio State did not get better in the last game at least. Our game against Indiana still means something. We beat them the way you should beat a team like Indiana. So we need that strategy. What we did against Indiana, we ran the ball. It may not have been the best running game, but we still kept things honest. And the way that we slung the ball around and allowed Will to play his game, we showed up in a much better way than we did the week after. So my question is who does the cold affect more, Tennessee or Ohio State? Generally, I would say cold weather. It's better to have a strong run game because you might not be able to pass the ball quite as effectively, and that's a problem. And it is something that I'm worried about tonight because under Ryan Day, for some reason or another, our run game just isn't what it has been historically. And I thought bringing in Chip that he would get that fixed. And when our starters were in, we were running for 170 yards per game. So it's not like it didn't get better this year. But, we lost two highly rated offensive linemen that were playing great ball. And Josh Simmons might have been one of the best offensive linemen in the country. And Seth McLaughlin had a much improved season at center compared to his season last year at Alabama. So losing those guys affected a lot. And, everybody can sit here and say next man up, which should be the mindset of your team. Don't get me wrong. But replacing offensive linemen is not easy. It's a very difficult task. And most teams can't sustain too many injuries on the offensive line and still have their offense as effective as it was. So these past 3 weeks are critical to us winning this game because we had to have coached up our players to win tonight, and we can't have a showing like Missouri, which the unofficial suspension of Carson Hintzman affected us greatly because he was calling, making the calls on the line, telling what needs audibled, what needs changed in the blocking schemes. Carson Hintzman was critical, and we're just like, okay, you're suspended. And then the coaches come out and say he wasn't suspended, but obviously he was because his suspension lasted into this season. So, that whole story is he said too much on a podcast and he got in hot water, this, that, or the other. But we can't have a repeat of that because it doesn't matter what quarterback we have. We would have them all swimming all over our quarterback all game. The offensive line is critical, and our offensive line has potential to be just as good. We have the players. Did we get the coaching during these past 3 weeks? That's the question. I don't have an answer to that because honestly, the Indiana performance and the Michigan performance were not up to par. So that's also critical to beat Tennessee tonight. But regardless, if that's not working perfectly, it doesn't necessarily have to. We just have to get the ball out a little faster, and we do have the tools to do that. But we also got to call the plays that allow Will to make those decisions, quickly. We got to have the routes where if Jeremiah Smith ain't open deep, we need to be able to say, okay, Brandon Ennis has a short open route that he can catch the ball and at least get us 5-6 yards, and maybe make more yards because we've been doing a great job even out of our short routes of creating bigger plays. So like even if our line isn't up to what it was before the Indiana game, we can at least draw up routes for that, and hopefully they did. But if they coached up our offensive line and we're scheming better, I do think that our offense can put up 24 to 30 points on Tennessee. But if we're trying to run the ball up the gut like five times a drive, 6 or 7 times a drive, like we were against Michigan, that's going to create a huge problem because our defense is getting tired in the fourth quarter. So do I think that we can beat Tennessee? I think we should beat Tennessee. We have better skill position players, except Dylan Sampson might be as good as Quinshawn or Henderson. or maybe even better. But overall, our skill players are better. I feel like we have a better quarterback for passing the ball than Tennessee does. I feel like our defense is equivalent to Tennessee. I think we have the advantage in a lot of positions that if we play our game, we will advance and go up against Oregon. So those are the things that I think as far as this game. So how does each team win? Well, Tennessee wins if they run the ball for over 200 yards on us. I think we can give up 120 yards and still win in this game. But if it's 150 to 200 yards, Dylan Sampson's just running all over us, Tennessee wins this game, period. They don't need to pass the ball all over us, which they're probably not going to anyways. They're not built that way. They don't need to. They just need to pass just effectively enough to keep us honest. If we give up chunk plays on the run game, we're in trouble, okay? Also, if our offensive line cannot keep Will off of the turf, we lose this game. We have to be able to just stop them long enough for him to make a decision and toss that ball. They're going to try to put pressure on him, so if we need to give up less than 2 sacks today to win, in my opinion. You know, so if we give up 2 or more sacks, Tennessee wins the game. So what wins the game for Ohio State? If Ohio State gets about 60 to 70 yards for both of our top running backs, and Will also gets, let's say Will Howard gets 25 to 30 yards rushing, and he's also got over 200 yards passing, I think we win today. I think that's the key. And if our offensive line can get some run blocks where we get a big play out of the run game, I think we win today. Also, on the defensive side of the ball, if we get to Nico and contain him and keep him from making those plays that Dylan Gabriel made on us, and limit their passing game and keep their run game under 150 yards so that, that's all that they're able to effectively do is run, but not, overkill, I think we win today. So those are my keys to today. I do want to say this. The experts have been saying that our fans are going to start booing our team, blah, 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 because of the Michigan game. And experts, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Ohio State fans are not going to start booing our team at the beginning of the game when we're in the playoffs. Ohio State fans want to win this game. We want to get the Tennessee monkey off of, or Tennessee, the SEC monkey off of our back. We want a chance at the national championship, but even more than that, more than anything, we want another chance at Oregon because we felt like we outplayed Oregon that entire game. So all of those things are things that the Ohio State fans want. Why would we start booing our team at the beginning of a game? I think that notion's ridiculous. As far as Tennessee taking over our stadium because they showed up to game day, I think that's ridiculous as well. Ohio State fans didn't go to game day. We're not fans of ESPN. We're not concerned about the game day gathering. It's not really our thing, okay? We don't like ESPN here. They don't like us, so we don't like them. That doesn't matter, guys. Tennessee fans, you showed up to game day. Congrats, I guess. What does that do? Like, I get it. You're excited to be in the playoffs. So are we. But game day doesn't matter to us. They don't like us. We don't like them. I've heard a lot of things out of Tennessee fans talking before this game. They said they were taking over the bars on campus, which I think is funny because OSU's on winter break right now, and a majority of the students are out of town visiting family for the holidays. So what does it prove that you were at bars in a greater number than us? That's silly. Tennessee fans, come on, man. I know you're excited, but that's ridiculous. As far as your comments about taking the goalposts to the river, I don't even know how you would do that. That would be really difficult. I think you'd have to walk. You have to walk quite a ways to do that, and the police would have to let you do that. That ain't happening. Even if you guys do win, that ain't happening. You aren't taking down our goalposts. Don't be silly. As far as taking over our stadium, that's not going to happen. uh, being in a playoff, they have to allocate more tickets for visiting teams than they normally would because it's the playoffs and fans are going to travel, but it's not. You're not going to take over our stadium. That ain't happening. So just get that out of your mind. But anyways, I've heard mostly smack talking from Tennessee. I'm not going to smack talk you guys. You guys are a good, solid team. I think you have a chance to beat us today. I do think that we are the better team overall. That doesn't guarantee anything if we don't have the right strategy. But I do feel like Ohio State will come out victorious. That's expected. I'm a Buckeye fan. But, that's what I expect. I expect us to win and play Oregon next week. I'm expecting a score of like 31-10. I think we dominate today, and that's because of what I said about our ability to get the ball to our playmakers. And I do think that we will run the ball just effectively enough. And then next week, I do believe if we face Oregon, I will give a preview on that. But I do believe that it'll be our best running game of the season next week because Oregon's weak to that. But anyways, those are my predictions. I am rooting on Big Ten teams a little bit, but I don't really care what they do. I only care what the Buckeyes do. Um, I just feel that Ohio State has the right players to win it all. That doesn't mean they will, but they do have the right uh, amount of talent to do it. It's just a matter of if they put it together. And we owe Tennessee because they cheated and wore illegal cleats when they played us the only time we played. I don't know how much that really matters, but we were slipping on the field much more than they were, so maybe it did. Regardless, they won that game, so we owe you a little bit of revenge. But I'm not saying the cleats are why we lost because it was a good, hard-fought game, and that game I remember it in the when I was a kid. I wasn't like a kid, but I was pretty young. But yeah, anyways, go Buckeyes. I think we win today, and we're playing Oregon, and we'll get there. Everybody, make sure you're loud in the stadium. I was originally going to go, but I had to take off last weekend, so I couldn't go this week. But I will definitely be cheering our Buckeyes on. And remember, the Scarlet and Gray will win today.